הבניין ועל הגבורות ועל התשועות ועל המלחמות.
Good evening, happy Hanukkah. Thank you to everyone who is joining us. We're continuing with Derech Hashem on page 519 in the Name and Addition, which is part 4, section 4, number 2. And we've been discussing Shema. We talked about that we say Shema twice a day. It's such an important mitzvah. And we're talking about the deeper meaning behind Shema and everything that it has to, all the deeper, not all, many of the deeper meanings behind it and the purpose of the mitzvah. And hopefully when we learn about this, we can say Shema with more kavanah and more intent. And last time, and the time before that, we talked about when we say Shema, we recognize that God is one, which means He is singular in the sense that, besides the obvious, that there is not more than one God, that He is the only being whose existence is not dependent on any other being. His existence is necessary. Every other thing that exists is dependent on Hashem for its existence, and that Hashem is in control and the master of the universe, that the only reason that we can do anything or anyone can do anything in the world or any part of the world can exist and do what it has to do is because God wills it to happen. If God did not will it to happen, then for 1 second, then it would just disappear. And we also spoke about how the purpose of creation is that the world should recognize this fact and recognize the oneness of Hashem. And that the Jewish people have a very important and privileged mitzvah to say Shema, because when we say Shema, we declare this fact that God is one and He is in total control of everything. And even though now that the world does not recognize that God is one and in control, the Jewish people have this merit to say Shema, to declare that God is one before the whole world recognizes it. And when we say Shema, we help push along the world to the final stage, when Mashiach comes, where everyone will recognize the oneness of Hashem, and by saying Shema, it helps bring that along. So now we're going to continue, again on page 519. V'hine, something else that you have to distinguish. Hu ki habari is baruch shemo, hine hu melech al kol briosav. Hashem is king over all of His creations. Uperish inyan zehu. The explanation of this is ki amnam emitis mitziyuso yisbarachu davar bilti nitle bezulaso klal ubilti misyaches luzulaso. God's existence is something which is not dependent on anything else, and that nothing else really has a connection with His. He doesn't interrelate with anything else. Kihine hu matzay mukhrach. His existence is necessary. V'shalim mitzanatzman, complete, independently. Ve'ein lo shum yachas im acher klal. He has no connection with another. Lo l'mal mimenu v'lo l'mat mimenu. Not above Him and not below Him. Perush she'ein lo siba she'itali bo klal. There is no reason, no cause that He is dependent on. Lo k'misoyviv im sibaso, lo k'mitztaref im mitztarfo. Neither in the way that an effect relates to its cause, nor in the manner of something that combines with that which joins to it. V'hine, b'china zos, in this aspect, nikreu b'shem eloika baruchu. When we talk about Hashem in His simple, I shouldn't say, not the simple is the wrong word, His oneness, His existence, which is not dependent on another at all, we use the name eloika baruchu. Dahainu hamatzoy hamukhrach mitzaratzmo. That means the being that exists out of necessity on itself, necessarily on itself. Ukamosh zacharna, like we mentioned above. Va'amnam b'yoshiratzu ubar nivraim v'kulam tluyim bo b'mitziyusam ubechol b'chinaisam. Since God wanted to create creations, and all of them are dependent on His existence in every aspect. Ukamosh zacharna, like we mentioned. Nikre'ehu b'bechinazu adon kol. We call God Master, Master of everything. Because everything is from Him. Everything is His. And He rules over everything through His will. God also wanted, so we have two names of Hashem. We have the name Eloika, which refers to God's existence, and then we have a name of Adnos, of Adon Hakol, Master of everything, which refers to the relationship that He has with the beings which He created. God also wanted in His goodness and His kindness as Rom Kvodo, to bring down His glory and His humility, Zrum Kavodo, his honor, Velios Misyaches al Nivroiv, and to have connections with his creations. Afal Pisha Be'emes, Ein Lehem Yachas Imo Klal, even though they really have no connection with him. V'ratzel Lios Lehem B'madregas Melech Al Am. God wanted that his creation should be on the level that he should be, klapi his creations, the level of a king to his people. Sheyechashiv lehem l'rosh u'lemanhig u'lehischabed kiviyachol bom. That God should be like at the head and the leader, so to say, the one who directs everything, and that he should be honored with them. Kimelech shemischabed ba'amo, like a king is honored by his subjects, so too Hashem is honored through us. Uke'enin shenemar, like it says, berov am hadras melech, and with the multitudes is the king's glory. Ubebechina zu, in this respect, nikreu malko shel olam, we call God king of the world. Vehine bebechina zu nechshav lanu l'rosh, and in this aspect he is referred to the head. Umeskabed banu, and his glory is with us. The fact that we exist, we provide him glory. So we are required to do our avoda, our service of Hashem. And to listen to him, whatever he commands, just like a king to his people. But so God didn't have to create the world like this, but he chose to create the world in a way where he is the king and we are his subjects. Right? God is not lacking anything that he needs to be honored by his creations, but he created the world in such a way that he is bebechinas melech to the people. V'ulam bebechinazu, in this aspect, gam kein chayav anu lahakiru b'chol yom. We are required to recognize it every day. Ulekayim malchuso aleinu, and to fulfill his kingship upon us. Ulehishtabed alav ugzerosav, and to subjugate ourselves to God's will and to his laws. Ka'avadim el malkam, like servants to their king. V'zeh nikra, this is called kabolos al malchus shemayim, accepting the yoke of heaven. V'nichlal in yana b'pasuk zeh shel Shema Yisrael, and this is included in the verse of Shema Yisrael. Dehainu, ha'haida b'davar zeh shehu melech malchi amlachim, that the recognition in this thing that God is the King of Kings, molech b'chol briyosav, that he reigns over all of his creations, hal yonim v'tachtonim, the upper worlds and the lower worlds, ulekava o malchuso, and that we accept the yoke of heaven, v'hishtabed elav u'kamoshe zacharnu, and that we subjugate ourselves to him, and like we mentioned. Now, so that's another aspect we have in Shema. So in these few words, this pasuk that we say twice a day, we think about all the ideas that are included in this one verse. So far we have the fact that God is one. There's not more than one God. We have the idea that his existence, God's existence, is necessary and not dependent on anybody else. We also have the idea that God is the cause of everything, and that if he did not want the world to exist for one moment, it wouldn't. We also have the idea that God is in control of everything, and we have the idea that his control will be revealed, and by saying Shema, we bring the world to that perfected state when everyone will recognize that. And now we have another aspect of Shema. So this is like the fifth or sixth idea already, that when we say Shema, we are accepting God upon ourselves as a king, that we will perform his decrees and accept upon ourselves, subjugate ourselves to God. So you think how amazing it is, just in this one verse, we have all of these ideas, and they're not just little ideas. These are ideas which are the foundation of humanity and why God created the world. Okay, let us proceed. Let's proceed. Gimel. From all of these topics and ideas, important rectifications come through to the creation. So we're not just saying these things and it doesn't do anything. He's saying when we say Shema, and these ideas that we're referring to, when we say Shema, it makes the world, it rectifies the world, it fixes the world. This is real Tikkun HaOlam. For those people who have co-opted the phrase of Tikkun HaOlam, this is real Tikkun HaOlam. V'zeh, ki ulai sidri habriya v'chanu naseh misudarim b'derech. Shekasher malchus yizbar shemon noidas umodim b'al kol brios. God made his world in such a way that when his creations recognize his kingship, nimsa b'bruim kol tov v'chol shava. That's when goodness and peace comes to the world. When God's creations recognize that he's king, peace and goodness come to the world. V'habracha misrabes behem u'shloima misgadol. blessing increases in the world, and there's peace. Peace grows. When the servants break away and they don't recognize that God is king, all good is lacking. Darkness rises and evil rules. And these things all extend to every aspect of creation. The upper worlds and the lower worlds. Those that act and those that receive. Like we mentioned in the first section. And whether Hashem's kingship is recognized is based on the lower worlds, the lower beings, meaning us, human beings. Right? He points here, what the Ramchal means to say, Rabbi Naaman explains, is that angels can recognize that God is one and king, but the fact that they do that doesn't affect the amount of blessing in the world. Only when human beings recognize that God is king will blessing come to the world. We've explained this earlier. We talked about the chains, the spiritual, how every human being is connected up and up to the spiritual world, and how that impacts and brings blessing to the world. Something we've talked about many times. What we need to know now for our topic. I'm going to summarize this. What we need to know is that based on whether we recognize Hashem's kingship or not, which comes from our actions, is that, one second, right, then when we recognize that Hashem is king, that's when we get the blessing and holiness and purity and everything good, and the forces of evil are subdued, and they will not they will not mess up, destroy the goodness in the world. And if we don't accept Hashem as king, then Hashem will hide His face, and we talked about that the source of evil is when Hashem hides Himself from us. So if we don't accept Hashem as king, He will hide Himself from us. It was in parts of Rishaltim v'chol todas enyin hazeh havos b'chol makom shehem shaykh Hashem v'hu klal kol haros nimtza ba'olam v'hinei v'yos Yisrael mischaskim b'chol yom hadavar zeh. When the Jewish people strengthen themselves in this idea, umekabla malchusa, when accept upon themselves the yoke of heaven, yizbarach u'modim ba, and they acknowledge it, belibam u'b'piyam, with their hearts and through their mouths. Mofia Kadosh Baruch Hu ba'olamo, Hashem appears in His world. V'kochos hara nichbim tachas hatov, and the forces of evil are subdued by the forces of good. V'nim shachas habracha la'olam, and blessing comes to the world. So we see when we're saying Shema, and we think in Shema that I am accepting upon myself the yoke of heaven, that means I'm going to listen to what the Torah says because Hashem told me to. I'm going to try my best to be a good Jew and be a good person. When I do that and I accept upon myself to do that, the forces of evil are subdued and goodness comes to the world. Blessings. Imagine what we're doing. Not only is Shema, as we mentioned last week, leading to the rectification of the world by recognizing Hashem's control, but it's also directly bringing blessing into the world. When we testify to the oneness of Hashem, like we mentioned earlier, will be answered. Connected this. Rectification upon rectification will be added to the world. Like the complete rectification, the complete tikkun olam, like we just mentioned. And it will cause everything to go, to lead to the world to be total, complete goodness, like we mentioned. What we have to understand in this, when we keep on talking about fixing the world, the rectification of the world, that's only from a human perspective. Not me'elov. He translates that as unilaterally. Ki ulam ha'hanhaga kvar mesudaras hi va'omedes ala derech hazeh shekol gilgula holchem ela hashlama v'zeh ma she'adam baruch hu mesaviv b'tuvu v'kocho ela she'haisa gezeres chachmaso she'ezeh nasa al yedei bnei adam. God made the world that it's going to lead to a rectification. However, the way He did that is that it should happen through the actions of human beings. that the humans will complete it. This will be completed by mankind. And the completeness will be the purpose, will be the ultimate perfection. And it will be, right, instead of Hashem causing the world to be rectified and making everyone recognize him like that, it happens through people, so that people are the ones responsible for the world's rectification and responsible for good coming to the world. I wonder how this works. He says, just as an aside, he mentions in Das Tfunos that it sounds like Hashem does push the world along into that direction. There's something called Midas HaYichud. Here he's saying it happens through people. So, I don't know if it's different levels or how to square that away. It's something that maybe just needs further explanation. This is the idea behind, the main idea behind this. That the perfection of the world will come about through people. Okay, so again, we have all these ideas in Shema, and hopefully when we say Shema in the morning, we could think about them. We're saying Shema, that God is one, He's totally in control, there's no other gods, His existence is necessary, that the world will come to a state when people will recognize that God is only in control and everything is from Hashem, and also that we accept Hashem as King, and when we do that, blessing will come to the world. But the main thing is that we should change the way that we say Shema in the morning and the evening, because if we just learn this and we don't change the way we do the mitzvahs, then it's actually worse had we never learned it. So everyone, we all have to try our best to improve a little bit. All right, have a happy Hanukkah, and see you next week.